Jenny was already running late. She did not need this extra traffic this morning. Normally, this route to work was clear because it went against the usual rush-hour traffic, but apparently this morning had decided to betray her. One of those mornings. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel and sighed in frustration. It had all started with her sleeping through her alarm. She had only woken up 30 minutes later, and, honestly, she blamed the job. She had worked into the night again, taking work home, again. At this point, she barely remembered what normal working hours looked like. Jenny grimaced to herself. Tell that to Mr. Anderson. She genuinely did not understand how Michael Anderson expected them to finish the amount of workload they were given within the actual office hours available to them. She already worked longer than her required hours, and still took work home. The traffic barely moved, Jenny groaned, then reached for her phone. She dialed Samantha. The call was answered after one ring. "Sammy," Jenny said immediately, "is Anderson in already?" Samantha let out a dramatic sigh. "He literally just walked into his office this minute." Jenny closed her eyes briefly. "And?" Samantha lowered her voice. "His frown is worse than usual." Jenny winced. "That bad?" "Worse," Samantha whispered. "Like he just got terrible news." Jenny groaned softly and leaned back against the headrest. "I'm about 15 minutes out." "I can try and cover for you," Samantha said quickly. "But hurry." The call ended. Jenny blasted the horn in frustration, knowing that it doesn't change anything. It's just a release of tension. The horn was doing absolutely nothing to move traffic. 12 minutes later, she pulled into the office parking lot. Not terrible. But maybe salvageable. She grabbed her things and hurried inside. The moment she entered the main office area, she saw Samantha, standing behind the transparent glass wall of her office, mouthing silently. "I am so sorry." Jenny stopped walking. No. She turned toward her office. And there, sitting comfortably in the armchair, like a man waiting to ruin someone's morning, was Mr. Michael Anderson, frowning. Of course. He looked up. "Good morning to you too," he said dryly, his frown somehow deepening. Jenny found herself staring at it, honestly wondering, surely it can't physically go deeper than that. Her thoughts were interrupted by his booming voice. "Are you just going to stand there staring?" Jenny jumped. "Sorry, Mr. Anderson, traffic was just really bad this morning." He waved her off before she could finish, clearly uninterested. He dropped a file onto her desk. Hard. "Get him to give an interview." Jenny blinked. "If not, we cannot save his career." He crossed his arms. "Have you seen the tabloids today?" She frowned slightly. He's helping them ruin his career by refusing to come out of his shell. Jenny absent-mindedly opened the file and froze. The photograph stared back at her. Her eyes widened. "Oh no." She looked up. "Mr. Anderson, not him." But he was already walking out. Jenny hurried after him. "I can't add him to my workload," she protested. "I'm barely above water as it is." He kept walking. "Besides," she continued quickly, "he's Anne's client." Michael entered his office, walked to his desk, then turned slowly. "Yes," he said flatly, "but Anne is out of the country." Jenny exhaled sharply. "Mr. Anderson." She rubbed her forehead. "Anne hasn't been able to get him to agree to an interview in over a year." She looked genuinely horrified. "What makes you think I can?" Michael didn't even blink. "Jenny." His tone turned firm. "Do whatever it takes." A pause. "We are not losing that account." And just like that, conversation over. Jenny walked back toward her office, dejected. Already stressed, Samantha was waiting inside. The moment Jenny entered, Samantha stood. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "He was already in your office before I noticed." Jenny sighed heavily. "Sorry, I have deadlines this morning." "I was distracted," Samantha frowned. "So?" She tilted her head. "What has him so strung up today?" Without speaking, Jenny threw the file onto the desk. Samantha picked it up. Her eyes widened. "Sean Peters?" The shock in her voice was immediate. "He's giving you Sean Peters?" Jenny dropped into her chair, put both hands under her chin, and sighed heavily, like life itself had become unreasonable. Then, from across the glass office wall, a loud voice echoed. "Samantha?" Mr. Anderson's voice boomed. "I hope you are not in there chatting again." Samantha jumped. "Right," she pointed apologetically. "I'm leaving," then quickly scurried back to her office. Jenny sighed. Again. Then slowly opened the file. Her eyes drifted back to the picture. Sean Peters. Brooding expression, dark hair, those deep, soulful blue eyes. There was something about him, something quietly intense. Jenny had always been strangely enthralled by Sean Peters. She loved his books. Her favourite, Predator to Prey. The book had been graphic, disturbing, dark, and somehow completely rewarding at the same time. It had stayed with her long after she finished it. The novel had come out 11 months ago. And since then, nothing. No interviews or appearances. Sean had refused interviews when the book was released, then disappeared again. Usually within 6 months of releasing a book, rumours would start, whispers from editors, talk of a new manuscript, a release date, something. But this time, silence. Even his editors had nothing to say. Jenny honestly knew very little about the current situation, only bits and pieces she had seen in the news. Then, underneath his photograph, she noticed it, his phone number. Jenny quickly picked up her phone and beeped the number, then paused, suddenly remembering something Mr. Anderson had said. The tabloids. Her stomach dropped slightly. She quickly opened the internet and sure enough, "Can brilliance disappear?" The headline sat boldly across the screen. As writer's block tightens its grip on once celebrated author Sean Peters, critics begin to whisper that perhaps the man who once captivated millions has finally run out of stories to tell. Jenny stared at the article. "This bad?" she muttered softly. Why had this landed on her table? Honestly, she wished she had just called in sick today. A slow headache was already beginning to form at her temples. Jenny leaned back in her chair and rubbed her forehead tiredly before opening one of her desk drawers and searching through the office directory. She found Anne's number and quickly beeped it into her phone. She had never saved Anne's number. Since joining Anderson Publications, the two women had never exactly liked each other. They had little to nothing in common, so their relationship had remained strictly professional. Office only. No personal conversations, no unnecessary friendliness. Jenny exhaled slowly and picked up her phone again, then quickly drafted a text. "Hello, Anne. I have been given Sean's case while you are away. How do I communicate with him? I know he has a record of being impossible to deal with. I know the world sees him like he's some literary genius, but at this point, it feels more like a man hiding from the fact that he hasn't written anything in months and doesn't look like he has anything in the works." Jenny pressed send, then dropped the phone onto the desk and reached for Sean's file again. A second later, her phone buzzed. Jenny blinked. "That fast?" She picked up the phone casually, then froze. Did a double take. The phone nearly slipped out of her hand. Her stomach dropped. The text read, "I assume this was meant for someone else, though I appreciate the career assessment. Sean," Jenny groaned loudly, almost painfully, immediately. Samantha's head popped into the office. "That bad?" Without speaking, Jenny held the phone out weakly. Samantha took it, read the message, then both hands flew to her mouth. "Oh," Jenny groaned again, longer this time. She had accidentally sent the message to Sean Peters. Not Anne. "Oh my God," Samantha whispered dramatically. Jenny pressed both palms against her forehead. "What do I reply?" she asked in panic. Samantha shrugged helplessly. "Mr. Anderson absolutely cannot hear about this." Jenny looked at her blankly. "Thanks. Very helpful." Right then, Martin walked into the office. The moment he saw both their faces, he stopped. "What happened?" Jenny looked up like she had just seen salvation itself. "Martin, thank God." She quickly grabbed her phone. "Guy to Guy." What should I reply? Martin looked confused, but before he could escape, Jenny shoved the phone into his hand. Martin read the text, then looked up slowly. No, you did not. Before Jenny could answer, another text came in. All three of them froze. Jenny looked horrified. I'm scared to open it. Samantha immediately grabbed the phone. Of course she did. Her eyes widened as she read aloud. No apology, or are publicists trained to disappear after character assassination? Jenny covered her face with both hands. Samantha kept reading. No apology, or are publicists trained to disappear after character assassination? The office suddenly felt too warm. Jenny stared at the desk in horror. She was going to lose her job. Actually lose it. Samantha lowered the phone slowly. Oh, he's funny. Jenny looked up sharply. This is not the time to admire his sarcasm, Samantha. Martin was trying very hard not to laugh. Very hard. Jenny snatched the phone back, then quickly started typing. Her fingers hesitated over the screen. Finally, she sent. I deserve that. For what it's worth, I don't actually think you're talentless. I think you're hiding. And unfortunately, the internet is being cruel about it. Jenny looked up at Samantha and Martin, then silently held up two crossed fingers. Samantha looked horrified. Martin looked impressed. Miles away, Sean Peters stared down at the message on his phone, his brows slowly furrowed, irritation immediately rising. He did not need this morning. Who exactly did she think she was discussing his career like that? Sean frowned slightly and reached for his coffee. Where was Anne? Why had his case suddenly been handed over? He quickly dialed Anne's number, straight to voicemail. Sean sighed heavily. He was not in the mood for endless texting. Not today. Without thinking much further, he pressed Jenny's number. Back inside the office, Jenny's phone suddenly started ringing, the number flashing across the screen. Sean Peters. Jenny immediately dropped the phone onto the table like it had burned her. He's calling. Her voice rose in panic. He is calling. All three of them stood there staring at the phone ringing on the desk. Nobody moving. Until Martin suddenly reached over and answered it, to Jenny's absolute horror. He held the phone out toward her and mouthed, "Talk." Jenny looked ready to faint. Tentatively, she took the phone. "Hello?" A pause. Then his voice came through the speaker. Low. "Hello," he said. "Obviously my case has been passed to you by Anne." A slight pause. "Who am I speaking with?" Jenny straightened instinctively. "Hello. Yes. I am handling your case temporarily because Anne is out of town." She swallowed nervously. "I'm Jenny Summers." At the sound of her voice, something in Sean was piqued unexpectedly. His attention sharpened slightly. There was something about her voice, soft, nervous, and strangely distracting. Enough to throw him off for half a second. Then he refocused. "Anne should have told you," he said calmly, "that I do not do interviews." A pause. "And I'm not about to start." If her voice had only mildly interested him before, now he suddenly found himself wanting to see the person behind it. Meanwhile, Jenny's nervousness was beginning to disappear, replaced instead by frustration. "Mr. Peters," she said sharply, "have you seen today's tabloids?" Sean blinked slightly. Her tone had changed completely. "Are you planning career suicide?" Martin's eyes widened. Samantha slapped a hand over her mouth. Jenny kept going. "Because if you are, please let me know before I commit to your case." Sean leaned back slowly in his chair, completely distracted now. Not by her words, but by her voice. Fierce, unexpected. Jenny continued. "We have to do an interview to control the narrative." A breath. "I'm not calling to ask whether you want to do an interview." Another breath. "I'm calling to know your availability so I can secure an interview for you, sir." The word "sir" snapped him back into focus. Silence. Then calmly. "Ms. Summers." His voice became cooler again. "I think you need to contact Anne to properly explain my case to you." A pause. "Good day?" The call disconnected. Jenny stared at the phone, absolutely livid. Who does he think he is? Across from her, Samantha clasped both hands together excitedly, her eyes practically sparkling. "Oh, that is strong chemistry." Jenny looked horrified. Samantha turned dramatically toward Martin. "What do you think?" Martin considered it thoughtfully, then nodded slowly. "You might actually have something there." Jenny stared at both of them in disbelief. "Chemistry?" She pointed toward the phone. "Oh, there's chemistry, all right." Her eyes narrowed. "The type that explodes and leaves nothing in its wake." Samantha burst into laughter. Jenny sighed heavily and dropped back into her chair, then pointed toward the door. "Can you both please excuse me?" She gestured toward the mountain of work on her desk. "As you can see, I have my work cut out for me." Then, after a beat, "I'll see you both at lunch." A pause. "Hopefully." Sean sat quietly behind his desk, the conversation replaying in his mind. He found himself becoming increasingly interested in Ms. Jenny Summers, which was ridiculous. Before he could change his mind, he reached for his phone, added her number to his contacts, then paused. A second later, he pulled up her WhatsApp profile and frowned immediately. The display picture only frustrated him more. She was turned away from the camera, as if someone had called her name from behind and she had just begun turning toward them. Not enough to see her face, just enough to annoy him. Her hair sat in a slightly messy bun, unintentionally soft, untidy in a way that worked, and she looked voluptuous, even from the limited angle. His eyes drifted lower, her neck, long and elegant. Why was he paying this much attention to someone's neck? Sean frowned harder, still staring at the picture, silently willing it to move, turn around. Nothing. He kept staring. "Turn your face." Still nothing. His jaw tightened slightly. "What kind of person," he muttered quietly to himself, "sets a display picture where you can't even see the actual picture?" He dropped the phone onto the desk in irritation, for reasons he refused to examine. Back at the office, Jenny had already started drafting an email to Anne, carefully explaining the situation and asking desperately for advice on how exactly she was supposed to handle Sean Peters. Because honestly, impossible barely covered it. The rest of the day swallowed her whole. Case after case demanded her attention, emails, deadlines, meetings. Still, her mind kept drifting back to the conversation, back to him. She frowned to herself while typing. Honestly, to think she had actually been enthralled by him. Gullible, that was what she was. "You've obviously created a false image of him in your head," she muttered quietly to herself. The mysterious genius, the brilliant, tortured writer, apparently also insufferably difficult. The next morning, Anne finally replied. Jenny opened the email quickly, then read, "He can be very obstinate at times." Jenny blinked. "That," she muttered under her breath, "is the understatement of the century." She kept reading. "The closest you can get to making him do anything is through his mum, Mrs. Bridget Peters." Jenny straightened slightly. "Once you explain it has to do with her son, she'll give you time." A pause. Her details attached. Before Jenny could even process that, her office phone rang. "Mr. Anderson." "Of course." She walked toward his office, already tired. The moment she entered, no greeting, no unnecessary politeness. "How is the case with Sean Peters going?" Jenny swallowed. "I spoke to him yesterday." Michael raised an eyebrow. "And?" Jenny shifted slightly. "We haven't concluded anything yet." A pause. "I'll call him again today." Michael leaned back slowly, expression unreadable. "Miss Summers." His voice sharpened. "That is not progress." Jenny stayed quiet. "I hope," he continued carefully, "I do not have to emphasize how important that account is." Jenny straightened instinctively. "Yes, sir." A breath. "I am working on it." She left his office feeling even less confident than before. Wonderful. Exactly what she needed. More pressure. She stopped briefly at Samantha's office, talked for a few minutes, mostly complaining, then went back to her own office. She glanced at the clock. Lunch. She would call Mrs. Bridget Peters after lunch. Hopefully, One person in the Peters family would be easier to deal with. Meanwhile, Sean Peters was irritated, with himself, more than anything. How exactly had he found himself here? Sitting in traffic, on the way to the city. He tightened his grip slightly on the steering wheel, genuinely annoyed. How did I even get here? The whole thing was ridiculous. He had been irritated by her call, then more irritated by her display picture. No actual picture. Nothing useful. Just enough to be annoying. He had practically spent half the night staring at it, talking to the stupid thing. Turn your face. Silence. Turn your face. Nothing. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous behavior. And yet, he had barely slept. By morning, he had finally accepted, though deeply irritating, if he did not see that face, he would be useless all day. Which explained, unfortunately, why he was now sitting in traffic, on the way to Anderson Publications, to see the woman behind the voice, and, finally, see the face behind that infuriating display picture. Jenny got to work that morning ready to tackle Sean Peters' case. For the first time since this whole disaster had landed on her desk, she actually had a plan. The night before, she had emailed Mrs. Bridget Peters' secretary, hoping to secure an appointment with Sean's mother regarding her son. Now, she was simply waiting for a response. In the meantime, work waited for no one. Jenny was currently trying to secure an interview with RMZ, one of the most influential television shows in the country, and, more importantly, they also had a magazine division, meaning if she got Sean on RMZ, they could control both narratives at once, television and print, exactly what Sean's reputation needed. Jenny immediately got to work, sending emails, making calls. She had already decided she was not contacting Sean again, at least not until she had spoken to his mother. Frankly, one difficult Peters at a time. And surprisingly, everything actually seemed to be going according to plan. Jenny smiled slightly to herself. Maybe today would be productive. She had barely finished thinking the thought when the door opened. Mr. Anderson walked in, immediately followed by someone else. Jenny glanced up casually, then froze. Gasped. Sean Peters stood inside her office, filling the room with his presence, and somehow looking even more intimidating in person. Magnetic, unfairly handsome. Her brain completely stopped functioning. Speaking? Impossible. Thank God, Mr. Anderson broke the silence. Good job, Jenny. Jenny blinked. What? Michael Anderson was smiling. Actually smiling. She genuinely had to do a double take, because this was such a rare event. It almost felt concerning. I see you've managed to reach out to Mr. Peters. He sounded impressed. Jenny opened her mouth, closed it again. He's here to see you, Mr. Anderson continued proudly. Jenny glanced quickly at Sean, who looked entirely too comfortable standing there. Across the office, through the glass wall, Jenny caught Samantha's eyes. Samantha immediately gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up. Jenny ignored her. I'll leave you two to it, Mr. Anderson said happily, then left, still smiling, which somehow made this situation stranger. The moment the door closed, Sean slowly looked her over. Slowly, entirely too slowly. Then casually pulled out a chair and sat down, like he belonged there. You're welcome, Jenny muttered quietly under her breath. Sean laughed dryly. Apparently, he had heard her. Jenny quickly sat down too, trying to recover, to regain control, before she could even ask why he was there. He spoke. Why did you hide your face in your WhatsApp display picture? Jenny blinked. What? Shock. Again. That was twice today already, and her heart genuinely could not keep doing this. I beg your pardon? She finally managed. Sean simply watched her, entirely amused, watching every emotion pass openly across her face, like she was somehow entertainment. You're very transparent, you know. Jenny opened her mouth, then closed it again, immediately offended, and slightly horrified. She inhaled carefully, trying again. Mr. Peters, call me Sean. he interrupted. Definitely not, she shot back instantly. He raised an eyebrow, clearly entertained. Mr. Peters? Sean, he interrupted again. Jenny went quiet, momentarily defeated. She was completely out of her depth. He leaned back slightly, still watching her. Why did you hide your face in your display picture? His voice softened unexpectedly. It's a very lovely face. A pause. Very expressive. Another pause. It shouldn't be hidden. Jenny genuinely forgot how words worked for a second, maybe two, then tried again. Professional. Mr. Peters. She cleared her throat. I assume you are here to arrange your interview. It's Sean, he corrected. Then casually added, and no. Jenny frowned. No. I came here to see your face. Her eyes widened. Since you hid it so well in your display picture. A pause. Maybe if you'd shown your face, I wouldn't be here disturbing you. Jenny blinked, then immediately said, No, you should be here. Sean's brow lifted slightly. So, we can arrange your interview, she finished quickly. Sean nodded slowly. That, he admitted lazily, I agree with. A beat. Not the interview part. He leaned back in the chair, watching her from beneath ridiculously long lashes. Jenny refused to notice that. Refused. Mr. Peters, she tried again patiently, it's important that we arrange an interview as soon as possible. A breath. Since you're already here, she quickly reached for her notebook. Let me call RMZ. Sean's brows rose. RMZ? Yes, she straightened slightly. And secure you an interview. Still watching her, entirely too focused, he said softly. Sean. A pause. Please. Then, without warning, have dinner with me, Jenny. Her response was immediate. It's Miss Summers. A pause. And I am definitely not having dinner with you. She folded her arms. This all feels like some sort of game to you. Oh, you're having dinner with me, Jenny. The confidence nearly offended her. I came to see you. His eyes moved over her face again. And I like what I see. Jenny forgot how breathing worked. Right then, Sean suddenly glanced toward the office door. Someone was walking past. His expression changed. Carl, Mr. Wish stopped, turned, then stepped inside. Sean stood. Carl Wish. Jenny's eyes widened. Sean Peters and Mr. Carl Wish knew each other. Since when? What are you doing here? Carl asked calmly. I didn't know you were coming into town. Jenny was fully aware her mouth was hanging open, but she couldn't help it. Across the glass office, she caught Samantha, who looked equally shocked. Sean shrugged casually. Spur of the moment. Then, without missing a beat, I had to stop by and see Miss Summers. Carl glanced briefly toward Jenny and lingered, curiosity quietly flickering across his face, then turned back to Sean. Lunch? Sean shook his head. Rain check. A small smile. I'm having lunch with the matriarch today. Carl smiled knowingly. Say hello to Mrs. Peters, then added, and stop sneaking into town. A beat. Let me know next time you're around. He glanced once more toward Jenny, nodded politely, then left. The moment he was gone, Sean sat back down, entirely too comfortable, and continued looking at her, like he was studying something fascinating. Jenny honestly thought, this is officially the strangest morning of my life. Finally, she asked, how do you two know each other? Sean shrugged. At one point, he paused. We crossed paths in a school, then casually added, don't ask me which one. Jenny narrowed her eyes. He smirked slightly. I can literally see 100 questions passing through your head. A pause. Unfortunately, I don't have time to answer them one by one. Then, like he hadn't already caused enough emotional damage, he asked, so, when are you having dinner with me? Jenny stared. Are you mocking me? On the contrary, his voice lowered slightly. I'm admiring you. Her stomach flipped annoyingly. And wondering when I can take you on a date. A pause. And kiss those adorable lips of yours. Jenny gasped. Immediately, colour rushing violently into her face. Sean noticed. Of course he noticed. You really need to stop doing that, His voice was far too amused. If you don't want the kiss to happen long before the dinner date. Jenny immediately shut her mouth, completely speechless. Sean laughed. See you soon. And then he was gone. Jenny barely had time to process what had just happened before Samantha and Martin practically burst into her office. So, Samantha said immediately, are you going to tell us why you're suddenly all red? Jenny simply stared at them, then slowly sat down, still processing. In shock, Samantha turned triumphantly toward Martin. I told you, she pointed dramatically. Chemistry. Then, without pausing, can we talk about my Mr. Wish? Jenny blinked. What? He gave you more attention in 10 minutes than he's given me since I joined this office. Samantha sighed dramatically. Will he ever notice me? Martin gently patted her shoulder, trying not to laugh. Then, still slightly stunned, Jenny said, he asked me to dinner. Samantha gasped, clapped both hands excitedly. Please tell me you said yes. Jenny looked horrified. Are you insane? He's a client, for crying out loud. So, Samantha shrugged. If Mr. Wish asked me out right now, I'd leave this office immediately. Martin laughed quietly. He's my boss, Samantha continued. So what? It's called romance. A dramatic pause. It happens in the strangest places. Jenny folded her arms. Well, I'm not dating him. A pause. I just want to get him an interview. Samantha narrowed her eyes. Fine. Then leaned forward. Tell me honestly. A beat. Were you at least attracted to him? Immediately, pink rose back into Jenny's cheeks. Samantha pointed dramatically. There! She pointed at her face. That says everything, Jenny groaned. So he's attractive. That doesn't mean I date him. Jenny, Samantha said dramatically, that is literally the first man you've found attractive in over a year. She turned toward Martin. Don't just stand there, say something. Martin shrugged, then smiled softly. Samantha, he gently pulled her arm. Let's leave her to sort through her feelings. Jenny immediately shot him a grateful look. Finally, someone reasonable. Unfortunately, peace was not happening today, because just as Samantha and Martin stepped toward the door, Mr. Anderson walked in, still smiling, entirely too optimistic. So, he looked excited. Have you come to an agreement? Jenny hesitated. We're still working on it. The smile vanished, immediately. What do you mean by that? Mr. Anderson, Jenny sighed quietly. He's avoided interviews for years. It's not something that changes in one meeting. A pause. Let me work with him. I'm sure I can get him to do the interview. Michael looked unconvinced, then finally said, well, work faster, and walked out. Jenny finally had time to herself, time to actually sit and think and process whatever on earth had happened that morning, because she had been equally angry and equally attracted to him. How was that even possible? She leaned back in her chair and sighed, replaying the conversation again and again. Call me Sean. Her cheeks warmed slightly. Have dinner with me. Jenny groaned quietly and covered her face. Could she? Absolutely not, surely not. She sat up straighter. I just have to keep it professional, she muttered firmly to herself, as if saying it enough times would make it true. Right then. An email notification appeared. Jenny quickly clicked it. Mrs. Bridget Peters' secretary. Her appointment request had been accepted. She would meet with Mrs. Peters tomorrow. Jenny smiled softly. Finally, something was moving. Meanwhile, Sean Peters sat quietly at a lunch table, waiting for his mother, and trying, very unsuccessfully, to stop thinking about Jenny Summers. He frowned lightly at himself. This, whatever this was highly unusual, unprofessional, completely out of character, uncontrollable. What exactly was it about Jenny that had affected him this much? Just hearing her voice had somehow thrown him completely off balance. He thought back to the moment he had entered her office, the moment he saw her. The pull had been immediate, powerful, far stronger than he was comfortable admitting. So strong. He had needed to sit down. Of course, he had played it cool, naturally. But internally, that had been the least of what he was feeling, and he certainly had not lied about her lips, which was deeply inconvenient, because lately, desire toward the opposite sex had been almost non-existent. After finishing Predator to Prey, something about that book had changed him, darkened something inside him. The heroine, Sophia. What she had gone through, what she had survived, the brutality of it. It had needed to be written. The story had come directly out of him, but afterward, he had found himself unable to stomach what he had written. Every time he tried to write again, the image of Sophia came back, her suffering, her transformation, and every other story disappeared. Every idea gone. Nothing came. His mother's hand gently touched his shoulder, pulling him back to the present. Sean immediately stood, leaning down to kiss her cheek. "Hello, Mum." Once seated, Bridget watched him quietly, like only mothers could. "What brings you to the city?" Sean looked up. "You don't come to the city." A pause. "When was the last time you were even here?" Sean smiled faintly. Which one of those questions would you like answered? Bridget narrowed her eyes immediately. Sean sighed softly. "I came to see my publicist." Bridget blinked. "That has never brought you into town before." Her gaze sharpened. "What suddenly became so important that Anne couldn't solve it?" Sean hesitated, then quietly said, "It isn't Anne. She's out of the country." A pause. "I came to see Miss Summers." Bridget raised one brow. "Miss Summers?" "She's temporarily handling my case," Sean replied casually. Bridget leaned back slowly. "And that brought you out of your hideout?" Sean sighed immediately. "Mum, no." She folded her arms. "Sean Adam Peters." That tone. The dangerous one. "Out with it." A pause. "I am your mother." Another pause. "And I have known you since you were in diapers." Sean grimaced. He hated when she was right. Because she was always right. "Eventually," he exhaled. "Fine." "I found her intriguing." Bridget said nothing, just watched him. "And?" Sean hesitated. "She's intriguing." He looked away briefly. "And more." Bridget went silent, studying him, carefully. Then, finally, "That bad?" Sean rubbed his forehead. Bridget smiled faintly. "I would like to meet her." "Oh, no." Sean straightened immediately. "Absolutely not. I do not need your help getting a girl." He pointed lightly. "I can handle that myself." Bridget laughed softly. "I'm not trying to help. I'm curious." Her expression softened. "The woman capable of bringing you out of your shell must be something." Sean narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Mum, promise me you won't do anything rash." Bridget smiled far too innocently. "I won't." Then, completely casually, "As a matter of fact, she already contacted my office." Sean froze. "What?" "She called to book an appointment." Sean frowned immediately. Bridget tilted her head. "You're paying those people a lot of money to protect your career. Why don't you trust them to do their job?" Sean sighed. "Mum?" "I don't want interviewers poking around in my head." Bridget shrugged. "Then talk to your publicist. I'm sure they can control the questions." Sean thought quietly for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Fine. I'll talk to Miss Summers." Bridget raised an eyebrow, but wisely said nothing. "Let's order, Mum." Back home, Jenny had finally settled in for the evening, comfortable and still replaying every ridiculous thing Sean Peters had said to her. Meanwhile, she had spent the entire day enduring Samantha and Martin's teasing, endlessly. Jenny sighed heavily. Then, her phone rang. She glanced toward it absent-mindedly, wondering who on earth would call this late. Then froze. Sean Peters. Jenny stared at the phone and absolutely did not answer. The ringing stopped. Peace. Then, the phone rang again. She ignored it. Again. Eventually. Silence. Then, a WhatsApp message arrived. Jenny looked down. "Are you going to answer or not?" Another message immediately followed. "I'm prepared to call all night, you know." Jenny stared. horrified, slightly alarmed. Then, the phone rang again. This time, she answered immediately, before he could embarrass them both. Sean chuckled softly, apparently pleased with himself. "So," his voice was warm, "how was your day?" Jenny rolled her eyes automatically. "You mean what remained of the day after you ruined it?" "Ouch." He laughed quietly. "Completely opposite for me. I honestly can't remember the last time my day was this good." "Thanks to you?" Jenny suddenly had absolutely nothing to say, which was annoying, even more annoying. The warmth creeping into her cheeks. Thank God. He couldn't see it. "Can I ask you something?" Before she could answer, he continued, "For what reason did you post only your neck in your display picture?" Jenny blinked. "What?" He sounded entirely too amused. "Is it some sort of tactic to make men more intrigued? Because if it is," his voice softened, "it's working." And for the first time in 2 days, Jenny laughed. Actually laughed. "Really?" She smiled despite herself. "That's the impression it gives. Believe me, if I had known that, it would be the first picture I removed." Another pause. "In fact," she reached for her phone, "let me change it now." "No." The response came immediately. "Leave it." Jenny laughed again. "Why?" His voice lowered slightly. "Because I like being intrigued. And," his tone turned annoyingly smooth, "I like looking at your neck." Jenny stopped breathing for half a second, "At least, until I can feel it under my hands." Jenny froze. "Is it soft?" His voice softened. "Silky? Velvet?" "Can't wait." Jenny went from mildly embarrassed to catastrophically embarrassed. "Stop it." "What?" He sounded innocent. "Stop flirting with me." "We should be talking about your interview." Sean laughed softly. "Yes. We'll discuss that during office hours." "I didn't call this evening to discuss work." Jenny quietly hated how much she liked hearing that. "So," he changed direction smoothly. "What do you do in your spare time?" Jenny relaxed slightly. "I read." "What do you read?" "Different things." A pause. "I love Sean Peters." Then immediately she froze. Because, oh God, she had just said that to Sean Peters. She pressed her lips together, waiting, desperate to ask questions about his books. This was her opportunity. Sean went quiet. Far too quiet. Long enough to feel strange. Then finally, "What's your favorite book?" He sounded oddly careful, almost hesitant. Privately, he hoped she would say literally anything except Predator to Prey. Sean closed his eyes briefly. Of course it was. "I love the book," Jenny continued. "It's gruesome, but satisfying." Her voice softened. Sophia defending herself. Getting revenge. Sean went completely silent. Again. "Mr. Peters?" Jenny asked softly. A pause. "Sean," he said. His voice came quieter, drier somehow. Tentatively, Jenny tried it. "Sean," he inhaled slowly. God, he liked hearing his name from her. "Far too much." Jenny hesitated. "Do you—" She searched for the words. "Kind of have mixed feelings about the book." Sean sat quietly, then surprised himself, because he found himself wanting to tell her everything, something he had not done with anyone. "I feel responsible." His voice lowered, for how Sophia turned out. A pause. "No woman should go through what she went through." Another pause. "No woman should become—" His jaw tightened. What she had to become just to survive. A breath. "I think I turned her into a monster." Jenny sat up straighter immediately. "Really? Is that what's been eating you up?" Sean frowned slightly. She continued gently. "It's true. No woman should suffer that, but women do." Her voice sharpened slightly. "Every day. Sometimes worse than what you wrote." Sean went quiet, listening. "You gave people hope." Her voice softened again. "Yes." She had to bring out the monster, but at least She didn't leave in a body bag. Sean blinked slowly. He had never, not once, looked at it that way. Jenny continued passionately. This book, she paused, it's your most realistic one. You didn't sugarcoat anything. Sean found himself strangely moved, unexpectedly warm. She cared, at least about the work, maybe about him too. Thank you, his voice softened. I needed to hear that. Jenny smiled. You can hire me to be your #1 critic. Then, back to business, of course. This is exactly why you need the interview. You released a masterpiece. You should be enjoying it. People are worried. Do record sales mean nothing to you? Sean sat quietly, thinking, reflecting. Finally, I'll think about it and talk to you later. Then, he was gone. Jenny sat on the edge of her bed, wide awake. Sleep was impossible. Her thoughts refused to settle. She replayed the conversation from earlier, again and again. The thing she could not stop thinking about was not the flirting, not even the outrageous comments about her neck. No, it was something else. Sean had genuinely felt bad about predator to prey. That surprised her. Because to Jenny, the book was really good. The story made women believe that somewhere inside them, even in their weakest moments, they had what it took to survive, to fight, to endure, if life ever forced them to. She sighed softly, pulling the blanket closer around herself. Honestly, she had not expected him to carry guilt about something so powerful. Meanwhile, Sean couldn't sleep. Restless. Whenever he felt restless, writing had always helped. At least, it used to. Without thinking much about it, he found himself walking back toward the study. Again. He had done this countless nights over the past year. Walk into the study, sit at the desk, stare at the screen, try, fail, then drag himself back to bed frustrated, empty. But tonight felt different. Sean sat down slowly, opened the laptop, and stared at the blinking cursor. Then, without warning, he started typing. And the moment he did, the words came. Effortless, like they had been trapped inside him, waiting for permission to exist. The story practically wrote itself, scene after scene, character after character. Unstoppable. Sean barely noticed the hours passing, didn't stop to eat, rest, or sleep until around 11 o'clock the next morning. Exhaustion finally won. He slept. Briefly, then woke up and immediately returned to the story, like he was afraid it might disappear again. The next day, Jenny arrived for her meeting with Mrs. Bridget Peters. The office was elegant, intimidating, and if Jenny was honest, so was the woman herself. Bridget Peters sat opposite her, studying her, carefully. To the point where Jenny genuinely felt scrutinized. How can I help you? Jenny straightened instinctively. Well, she cleared her throat. Anne gave me your details so I could speak with you regarding Mr. Peters's career choices. Bridget remained silent. Jenny continued. We've been trying to get him to agree to an interview. To correct the narrative out there. She exhaled softly. The narrative that his career is over. That he can't write anymore. Jenny hesitated, then muttered. Excuse me, but your son is the most obstinate person I have encountered in this line of work. Something unexpected happened. The corners of Bridget's mouth twitched, the smallest smile. In what way can I help? Jenny blinked, before Bridget added casually, because I know he came to see you yesterday. Jenny froze. At Bridget's raised brow, the older woman continued, I had lunch with him. So I know. Jenny shifted awkwardly. Yes, he came. But he still isn't agreeing to the interview. Bridget watched her quietly for a moment, then said something Jenny absolutely had not expected. But you've already achieved more than Anne managed in a year, Jenny blinked. What? You got him to come into town. Bridget leaned back slightly. Not even I can get him to do that. If I want to see him, I go to the countryside. Jenny sat there, completely exasperated. Yes, but... She hesitated. He didn't come for the reason you think. Bridget raised one brow, questioning. Jenny immediately felt heat creeping up her face. If she wanted this woman's help, she probably needed honesty. So, against her better judgment, Jenny told her everything. Well, she inhaled deeply. To me, it feels like he came because of some misguided notion that he's intrigued by me. She looked vaguely horrified, saying it out loud. This whole thing is messy. How exactly is that helping his career? Bridget stared at her, long enough to make Jenny uncomfortable, then finally said, "My son is anything but misguided, Miss Summers." Jenny blinked. If he says he's intrigued by you? Then he is. Another pause. At least enough to come out of hiding. Bridget folded her hands calmly. And risk running into the reporters he's been avoiding. Jenny went quiet. When she put it that way, it sounded serious. Bridget continued, "If I were you, you have his attention." Her voice sharpened slightly. "I would use it to your advantage." Jenny nearly choked. "Excuse me." Her eyes widened. "Are you suggesting I use his attraction to me?" "That," Bridget interrupted calmly, "is exactly what I'm suggesting." Jenny stared. Utterly shocked, Bridget leaned back, entirely unbothered. "Think about it. He needs to be in town to do the interview." Another pause. "He has already come to town." She tilted her head slightly. "So what exactly are you going to do with that opportunity?" Jenny said nothing. Bridget continued. "Waste it? You're too scared to make good use of it." Jenny sat there quietly, still stunned. That was the very last thing she had expected to hear from Sean Peters' mother. But strangely, she liked her. Bridget clearly believed in using every tool available, every opportunity, whatever it took to achieve the goal. Now, Jenny found herself wondering, what exactly did this mean for her? If she was being honest, she wasn't built for manipulation, not really. She knew herself. The only thing she could do was be honest with Sean, and hope honesty worked. The night before, something had changed between them. She had reached a part of him, a closed-off and vulnerable part, the part nobody else seemed to reach. Oh, maybe that would be enough. When Jenny got back to the office, Samantha and Martin were already in her office, waiting, naturally, because nothing interesting could happen in Jenny's life anymore without becoming public office discussion. Jenny dropped her bag onto the desk, then immediately began recounting her conversation with Mrs. Bridget Peters. The moment she finished, Samantha frowned. "No," she shook her head. "I'm sure you misunderstood the conversation." Jenny blinked. "What?" Samantha folded her arms. "She's his mother. She cannot possibly be telling you to manipulate her son." Jenny opened her mouth, then closed it again. It had sounded strange to her too. Samantha continued. She was probably saying, "It doesn't matter why he came into town." Her expression softened slightly. "You should simply use the opportunity that has landed in your lap." Jenny still looked uncertain. "Okay," Samantha leaned forward. "Let me ask you a question." Jenny narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "You mean to tell me," Samantha pointed at her, "that every single time Sean comes to see you, you're not going to try talking to him about the interview?" Jenny frowned immediately. "Of course I am. I'll still try to convince him." Samantha spread both hands dramatically. "How is that any different from what his mother said?" Jenny paused. Then Samantha turned toward Martin, who had remained unusually quiet, sitting there thoughtfully. "What do you think?" Martin finally leaned forward. "Okay, Jenny. Let me ask you something." Jenny sighed. "Fine. Do you think you could convince Sean more?" He paused carefully. "In person? Or over the phone?" Jenny answered immediately. "In person." Martin nodded slowly. "Exactly." He gestured lightly. "That's what his mother meant. The biggest problem has always been getting him out of the house." Jenny stayed quiet, thinking. Martin continued. He shrugged. "You've already done that." "For whatever reason." His expression softened. It doesn't matter why he came. He's here. Make use of the opportunity. Jenny said nothing, because they were making sense. After Samantha and Martin finally left, Jenny sat quietly in her office, thinking, so how exactly am I supposed to use this to my advantage? She didn't know. Manipulation wasn't exactly her thing, and before she could overthink it any further, her office door opened. Again. Jenny looked up. Mr. Anderson, of course, and walking in directly behind him, Sean Peters. Jenny froze internally, but this time, she managed to school her expression. Across the office, through the glass wall, she glanced briefly towards Samantha, who immediately gave her a knowing look, the type that said, "I told you so." Jenny ignored her. Mr. Anderson was already talking. "Miss Summers," he sounded entirely too pleased. "I see you and Mr. Peters are finally making some headway." Jenny nearly laughed. Headway? That was certainly one way to describe whatever chaos this was. "That's good," Michael nodded approvingly, then added, "As a matter of fact," he smiled proudly, "Mr. Peters mentioned you're both going to lunch." Jenny blinked. "What?" "To discuss the way forward." Her eyebrow lifted slightly. A laugh nearly escaped her, because here she had been worrying about manipulating Sean. Meanwhile, Sean had absolutely no problem manipulating the situation himself, using her need to advance his case to see her, and convincing her boss in the process. It was annoyingly impressive. Jenny slowly smiled, then turned toward Michael. "Yes." Her tone suddenly confident. "We have a lot to discuss." Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Sean visibly pause, caught off guard. Good. For once, the surprise belonged to him. Jenny stood, reached for her handbag, then looked directly at Sean. "Shall we?" Sean looked at her carefully, suspiciously. What exactly is she up to now? He had fully expected to spend the next 20 minutes convincing her to have lunch with him. And here she was acting like she had arranged it. Interesting. They left the office together. Once inside the car, Jenny turned slightly toward him. "How's your day been?" Sean glanced briefly at her, mildly amused. "You know," Jenny continued casually, "I really wasn't expecting to see you in the city again this soon. We couldn't get you into town for an entire year." She folded her arms lightly. "And suddenly, you can't seem to stop coming." Sean smiled slowly. "You know exactly why I'm coming into town. And it has absolutely nothing to do with my career." Jenny turned toward him fully, studying him. "Are you genuinely not bothered about your career?" Sean went quiet, for longer than she expected, his expression more serious now. "I write because I love writing." His voice quieted. "It's a passion. An outlet." Jenny stayed silent, listening. Sean continued. "I don't care about the career." He shrugged lightly. "That part? I can survive. What I care about," his voice lowered slightly, "is the fact that I stopped being able to write." Jenny's expression softened immediately. "That," he exhaled quietly. "That was worse." "Losing my ability to write?" He shook his head. "That scares me more than losing the career." "I've written," he frowned slightly. "What? 50? 51 books?" He shrugged. "I can live off the royalties for the rest of my life. But I cannot survive." His jaw tightened slightly. Not being able to write, Jenny sat quietly, watching him. This was the most passionate she had ever heard him speak about his work, more vulnerable too. Something softened inside her. Finally, she spoke. "We'll talk about your interview at lunch." Sean glanced sideways at her, then said, "There's something more important I want to discuss with you." Jenny blinked, speechless. When they finally sat down at lunch, Sean simply sat there, looking at her, like she was something fascinating he had not quite figured out yet. Jenny shifted slightly in her seat. Then he said casually, "You look delectable today." Pink instantly rushed into her cheeks. Sean smiled immediately. "Satisfied. I like when you do that." Jenny opened her mouth. fully prepared to say, "I am not doing anything." But she stopped herself. She refused to encourage that particular line of conversation. Sean tilted his head slightly. No reply? The knowing look on his face only made things worse. Jenny cleared her throat quickly. "You said we were going to talk about your interview." "Yes," he replied calmly. "But first," he leaned back slightly, "we talk about what I want to say." Jenny looked at him questioningly. Sean laughed softly. "Stop looking at me that way. You make me want to pick you up and kiss you senseless." Jenny's already pink cheeks turned an alarming shade of red. "Stop it," she said, a little breathless. "Stop what?" he asked innocently, smiling, entirely too pleased with himself. Then he became more serious. "Okay, Jenny." He exhaled slowly. "Let's be serious." Something in his tone made her sit straighter. "I like you. And," he continued, "I want to date you." Jenny's lips parted immediately, already preparing the obvious objection. "You are my client," but Sean interrupted before the words could leave her mouth. "And before you say," his eyes held hers, "I'm your client." "I'm not your client," Jenny blinked. "What?" "I'm Anne's client." His tone remained calm. "Anne will be back soon. My case will return to her, though," he hesitated briefly, "I would ask you to reconsider." Jenny frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I would like you to handle my case full-time," he said it matter-of-factly. "But," his gaze softened, "if that's where you draw the line." "If dating me means you can't handle my account," he shrugged lightly, "I'll gladly go back to Anne." Jenny stared at him, completely surprised. "You want me to take your case full-time?" Her brows lifted. "But you'll let that go?" "If I go on a date with you?" Sean shook his head immediately. "No." His voice lowered slightly. "Not if you go on a date with me." "If you date me," Jenny swallowed, hard. "As in regularly? As in—" His lips twitched slightly. "You being my girlfriend?" At this point, even Jenny's neck had turned pink. And of course, Sean noticed. Because nothing escaped him. He continued quietly. "I want you more than I want you as a publicist." His voice softened. "I would prefer both." A small smile. "But like I told you, the career isn't the thing that matters most to me." He held her gaze. "I told you. You intrigued me. I'm past intrigued now." His voice dropped lower. "I want you." Jenny's breath caught. "I think about you. Day and night." And then, almost unfairly, he added, "And I know the feeling is reciprocated." Jenny froze. "You don't say much." He smiled faintly. "But I see the way you react to me." Jenny could not have spoken, even if someone paid her to, because everything she had been trying desperately to hide was out there, completely visible, for him to see. Sean watched the emotions flicker across her face. Could she really not tell how expressive she was? He could read her like a book. And right now, he desperately wanted to pull her into his arms, but he could tell she wasn't ready for that yet. So, he kept himself in check. Instead, he reached across the table and took her hand, then lifted it to his lips, softly kissing it. Jenny inhaled sharply. He could physically feel her pulse racing beneath his fingers. His thumb absent-mindedly caressed her hand. He stopped kissing it, but didn't let go. He needed the contact. "When we finished talking the other night," his voice grew quieter, "you told me things that no one else had told me." Jenny found her voice, barely, still distracted by his thumb brushing against her skin. "You probably would have heard the same thing from anyone." She cleared her throat. "It's just, you locked yourself away and listened to no one." But Sean continued, as though she hadn't spoken. "I went home. Serious. I sat down at my typewriter, which, mind you, I've done almost every day for the past 8 months." Jenny listened quietly. "I always found myself empty." He exhaled. No words. "But this time," I sat down, and the words poured out of me. Sean watched her expression carefully, the excitement, the genuine pride for him. She actually cared, and that warmed something inside him. Jenny gasped softly. "Oh, Sean." Her face lit up immediately. "I'm so excited." She leaned forward slightly. "What's the story about? Who's the protagonist? What direction are you going with this one?" Sean laughed, warmly this time. "You sound like a reporter." "I can really tell you're my fan." Jenny blushed again. "I couldn't stop writing," Sean continued. "I only slept a little, to gather energy." His eyes softened. "The book is almost finished now. Just final touches." Jenny looked genuinely thrilled. Sean found that ridiculously endearing. Then he said quietly, "I'll grant you your interview." Jenny blinked, immediate relief flashing across her face as soon as possible. "Because," his expression turned deliberate, "I intend to take our relationship to the next level the night of the interview." Jenny froze. "We're going on a date." A slow smile crossed his face. "So, I'll wait until then." He paused, then asked gently, "What do you say?" "I don't want you feeling like one of my heroines." His voice softened. "Women who never get given a voice." Jenny appreciated that. She cleared her throat, trying very hard, very unsuccessfully, to ignore the fact that he was still holding her hand. "I'm happy you're doing the interview," professional mode. "And the fact that you have an almost finished book," she smiled. "That gives us an advantage. Now we can control the narrative." Then she asked, "Have you sent the manuscript to your editors?" Sean nodded. "They're excited. They wanted to start media chatter immediately." A pause. "But I stopped them." His expression sharpened slightly. "I want to be the one to release the information." Jenny looked at him, not even attempting to hide her emotions anymore. She had been terrible at hiding them anyway. Then finally, "I'm interested in you too." Sean went very still. "And," her cheeks warmed immediately, "I would like to date you." "Be your girlfriend?" She looked down briefly, then back at him. "But," "I agree. We wait until after the interview." Sean stayed quiet, listening. "And after the interview," she continued carefully, "I'll decide whether I can be your publicist, depending on how well we work together." Sean held her gaze, the restraint in him, barely holding. Then he smiled, slowly. "My mum approves, by the way." Jenny nearly choked. "What?" Sean laughed outright. "You went to see her?" "She called me immediately afterward." He leaned back, entirely amused. "Her exact words?" He cleared his throat dramatically. "You are not my son if you cannot get that girl to date you." "And don't be slow about it," Jenny gasped. Sean laughed harder. "Don't worry," his tone softened. "You'll get to know her better." "She was very impressed by you." Jenny blinked. "How?" I barely said anything. She genuinely tried replaying the conversation in her head. Sean smiled. "Apparently, whatever little you said impressed her." Then reality hit again. Jenny sighed softly. "Anne won't be happy if I take your account." "And what about Anderson?" Sean raised a brow. "What do you think?" Jenny rolled her eyes. "Of course he'll be happy." Sean shrugged. "Anne knows she wasn't getting anywhere with me." "She was exasperated most of the time." A faint smirk. "I'm sure she'll be thrilled to hand me over." Jenny wasn't convinced, but for now she kept that thought to herself. Sean dropped Jenny back at work, walked her all the way to the office, like he had every right to. Jenny told herself that she should probably be bothered by how naturally he inserted himself into her life, but she wasn't. When they stopped outside her office, Sean looked at her, that familiar intensity back in his eyes. Then, without warning, he leaned in, placed a soft kiss against her cheek, then simply turned and walked away, leaving Jenny standing there, heart doing entirely too much. Before she could even breathe, Samantha appeared, like she had been summoned by romance itself. "I saw that," She clasped both hands dramatically against her chest, eyes wide with excitement. Jenny shook her head immediately, then, to her own surprise, smiled. No. Her cheeks warmed instantly. On the day of the interview, Samantha gasped, then threw her arms around Jenny. Oh my God! Before Jenny could protest, Samantha ran out of the office. Jenny sighed, already knowing exactly where she was going, straight to Martin's office. Office gossip. Jenny sat down at her desk, determined not to overthink lunch, or Sean, or anything he had said, which lasted approximately 30 seconds, because every sentence replayed in her mind. I want you. I think about you day and night. I want you more than I want you as a publicist. Jenny groaned softly, then shook her head. No. Focus. She picked up the phone, called RMZ. Fortunately, they had an interview slot available. 5 days from now, Jenny should have been relieved. Ecstatic even, she had finally secured the impossible interview. But instead, the only thing she could think was in 5 days, I'll be Sean Peters' girlfriend. The thought alone nearly short-circuited her brain. She quickly called Sean. The phone barely rang before he answered. I got the date. She tried sounding professional. 5 days. Silence. Jenny blinked. Sean? Still quiet. She knew. He was thinking exactly what she was thinking. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded clogged, like emotion sat somewhere in his throat. What do we do now? Jenny swallowed, trying not to think too much about how emotional he sounded. We prepare. We meet every day to prepare for the interview. Another pause. You'll need coaching. Questions. How to redirect. How to avoid traps. Sean exhaled softly. Every day? Something in his tone warmed her. Yes, she replied quietly. Every day. They arranged a time, then hung up. Her next stop. Mr. Anderson's office. She knocked once, walked in, and told him. The interview was secured. For a moment, he simply stared. Then, to Jenny's complete shock, he beamed. Actually beamed. I knew all along you'd pull it off. Jenny blinked. Really? Really? Was this the same man who had practically threatened her job? Interesting. Still. She smiled politely because honestly, she could not wait to get the interview over with. Not only to get Mr. Anderson off her back, but her cheeks pinkened instantly, for another reason entirely. Sean. Sean could not wait to see Jenny every day. And that scared him a little, because when exactly had things gotten this serious, this fast? He had not even known she existed days ago. And now, he found himself structuring his entire week around seeing her, thinking about her, missing her. He knew, without question, that he was already falling for her, which, for someone like him, was terrifying. He needed to slow down, for her sake, because he knew himself, knew how intense he could become, how consuming he could be. And the last thing he wanted was to scare her away, truthfully. He was slightly frightening himself too. But at this point, he didn't really care anymore, because Jenny Summers had become worth the risk. They met every day, preparing for the interview, usually in her office, Jenny teaching him everything, the kind of questions reporters would ask, how to answer, to redirect, avoid dangerous territory, and how to subtly change narratives. And Sean, though annoyingly intelligent, was surprisingly cooperative, mostly because it meant time with her, though he developed a very inconvenient habit, touching her at every possible opportunity, a hand brushing her shoulder, fingers lingering against hers, leaning too close, adjusting things that did not need adjusting, and every single time. He heard it, that soft catch in her breath, and knew. She felt it too, exactly what he was feeling. He also developed another habit, kissing her cheek, every morning, every evening, when he arrived, when he left. And it was becoming unbearable for Jenny. Half the time, Jenny found herself thinking, for heaven's sake, just kiss me properly already and free both of us from this misery. One afternoon, Sean had lunch with his mother, and she sat there, watching him, far too closely. Then, finally, she smiled. I wondered when I'd see this day. Sean frowned. What day? She raised a brow. The day you fell in love. He answered immediately, too quickly. Who said anything about love? His mother gave him a look, the kind only mothers could give. Sean Adam Peters, her voice calm. I am your mother. Don't insult my intelligence, he sighed, already defeated. You can hide from everyone else all you want, she continued, but you cannot hide from me. Sean said nothing, because she was right. Instead of taking Jenny out to lunch every day, he started lingering in her office, watching her work, like he belonged there, because he already knew. If he kept taking her to lunch, he wouldn't be able to keep his hands to himself. And barely touching her was already difficult enough. The day of the interview arrived. Jenny and Sean had agreed to meet directly at the studio. The past few days had left her completely on edge. Sean Peters had become a problem, a very attractive problem. He walked into her office every day, gave her a soft kiss on the cheek, touched her at every opportunity, and left her increasingly frustrated. Half the time, she genuinely wondered what he was waiting for. Jenny arrived at the studio. Sean was already there, being prepped, hair, mic, lighting. But they had prepared for this. Every possible scenario, every dangerous question, every redirection, every narrative turn. The interview started. Jenny sat behind the camera, watching. He looked unfairly handsome, confident, sure of himself. Then, midway through, Sean looked behind the camera, locked eyes with her, and the weight of that look almost knocked the air from her lungs. It carried entirely too much meaning, too much promise, too much anticipation. He answered questions perfectly, exactly how they rehearsed, answering some, avoiding others, changing narratives effortlessly, redirecting difficult conversations, throwing in humor at the right moments, even flirting lightly with the host, perfectly timed, natural. And then, a tiny hint, a suggestion, a whisper of a new book coming soon, and the infamous interview was done, finished. Sean followed her outside, all the way to her car. Jenny turned toward him, still emotionally buzzing. Sean looked directly into her eyes, then simply said, I'll pick you up at 8, and left. Jenny stood there, still holding her car door, completely frozen. Part of her almost called after him, You don't even know where I live. But then she stopped herself, because she knew Sean Peters would absolutely find her address. The interview was live. It was an instant success, far bigger than either of them had expected. The response was immediate, explosive. By the time Jenny got into her car, her phone had already started buzzing, non-stop, calls, texts, emails, notifications piling on top of one another. Sean Peters was trending, again, but this time for the right reasons. People were praising the interview, talking about how genuine he seemed, how witty, how charming, how unexpectedly vulnerable. And, more importantly, the narrative had changed. Completely. No longer, Sean Peters has disappeared. No longer writer's block has destroyed his career. Instead, the internet was now buzzing about Sean Peters is back, and a new book. The speculation alone was enough to drive excitement wild. Jenny glanced quickly at her phone while stopped at traffic, messages flooding in. Congratulations, you pulled it off. That interview was brilliant. RMZ ratings are through the roof already. Her phone rang again.
Martin, Jenny answered. Well, Martin said immediately. You survived? Jenny laughed softly. Barely. You were brilliant, he said honestly. And so was he. A pause, then, I'm proud of you. Jenny smiled. Thank you. The moment she hung up, her phone rang again. Samantha, of course. Jenny answered immediately. So? Samantha's voice practically exploded through the phone. You're going on a date today! Jenny could not stop herself from smiling. Yes. A pause. I'm going home to get dressed. Samantha gasped loudly. Oh my God! No. No! This is serious. Jenny laughed. Sam. Absolutely not, Samantha interrupted dramatically. You are not choosing your outfit alone. A pause. Stay on the phone. Jenny rolled her eyes affectionately. Why? Because, Samantha said matter-of-factly, you are absolutely going to need my help choosing what to wear. Jenny laughed again, properly this time. Because honestly, for the first time in what felt like forever, everything felt good. Really good. The interview was done. Mr. Anderson would finally stop breathing down her neck. Sean's career had shifted direction and, her cheeks warmed immediately. In just a few hours, she would officially be going on her first date with Sean Peters. Her stomach flipped, completely unhelpfully. And suddenly, choosing an outfit felt terrifying. On the drive home, Sean's phone rang. He glanced briefly at the screen. Mum. A grin tugged immediately at the corners of his lips. He answered. Sean? Bridget sounded entirely too pleased with herself already. Congratulations. You did exceptionally well out there. Sean laughed softly. Thanks, Mum. No, she continued immediately. You did really good. You were exceptionally witty tonight. Sean shook his head, smiling to himself. That's all, Jenny. He said it easily, without hesitation. Everything. The confidence, the way I answered, the narrative control. She prepared me for all of it. Then Bridget sighed dramatically. I told you. That girl is for keeps. Sean smiled to himself, softly. I know, Mum. That's why we become official tonight. The excitement on the other end of the line became immediate. Oh, good! Bridget practically squealed. At least I can finally start dreaming about grandbabies. Sean burst out laughing. Mum, slow down. We still have a very long way to go. I have to wine and dine her first. Bridget hummed knowingly. You better not be slow. Sean laughed again. His mother could be absolutely incorrigible. They ended the call, and Sean found himself still laughing to himself. Grandbabies? Already? No. He planned to have Jenny all to himself for quite some time first. The thought alone made him laugh again. Meanwhile, Jenny's bedroom looked like a small fashion disaster had exploded. Half-open wardrobe, rejected outfit piles, and Jenny, standing in the middle of it all, completely overwhelmed. Her phone sat on speaker, Samantha's voice blasting dramatically through the room. Really, Jenny? You're impossible, Jenny sighed heavily. I'm lost here. And you're not helping. Wear the deep green sparkle dress. Jenny looked horrified. Are you kidding me? Samantha gasped loudly. What? You tricked me into buying that dress, Jenny said immediately. It's too revealing. I don't want to give the wrong idea. What wrong idea? Samantha replied instantly. That both of you cannot wait to get your hands on each other. That isn't the wrong idea. That is very obviously the correct idea. Jenny ignored her completely, because Samantha was probably right. She kept digging through clothes, one hanger after another. Then, hidden further back inside the wardrobe, she stopped, pulled something free, a deep blue satin dress. Her eyes widened. Perfect. The dress wrapped elegantly around the waist, mid-calf length, soft cold shoulder sleeves, simple, elegant. She ended the call with Samantha, then stood in front of the mirror, taking herself in. The soft pink in her cheeks somehow made the deep blue look even richer. She had left her hair down, long, unruly waves cascading over her shoulders, untamed. This was exactly why she normally wore it in a bun, because loose, it had entirely too much personality. And suddenly, Jenny felt really nervous. When Sean arrived and Jenny opened the door, he simply stood there, silent, completely still, just staring. Jenny shifted awkwardly, suddenly hyper-aware of herself. Then, without saying a word, Sean reached for her hands, slowly, like he needed to touch her to confirm she was real, and gently led her to the car. The drive was quiet, charged, like there was too much anticipation between them, too much waiting finally ending. Sean had booked them into a prestigious Italian restaurant, elegant, private, dimly lit. He had specifically requested a corner table, tucked quietly away, mostly hidden in shadows, away from curious eyes, away from interruptions. They ordered, and immediately Sean moved his chair. No chance he was sitting opposite her. He sat beside her, close. Not that Jenny minded. "You look ravishing, delectable enough to eat. I did not trust myself to say anything earlier," Sean whispered into her ears. She blushed profusely. "Thank you," Jenny whispered. He took her hand, again, looked directly into her eyes, lifted his hand to the back of her neck, fingers brushing lightly against her nape. The infamous nape, the one he had clearly become obsessed with. His thumb moved softly against her skin. "Why did you let your hair down?" His voice lowered, almost disappointed. "You should have left your neck uncovered for me." Jenny's breath caught. "I like seeing it." "Now it's hidden." He leaned closer, close enough for warmth, then whispered softly against her ear, "Velvet." Jenny blushed instantly, and before she could gather herself, Sean tilted her chin gently and kissed her. Finally, the much-awaited kiss. Jenny's very first thought was, finally, what had taken him so long? The kiss was soft but demanding, patient yet somehow desperate, like a man who had been thirsty far too long. Sean groaned quietly against her lips, pulled her slightly closer, deepening the kiss. Jenny heard the soft sound that escaped her, a whimper, and briefly wondered, was that me? Sean broke the kiss, barely, only enough to place soft, feather-light kisses across her lips, her cheek, her temple, her jaw, even lightly against her neck, like he genuinely couldn't help himself. Then he leaned back slightly, studied her face, and sighed heavily. "You are going to be the death of me." "I've wanted to do that for days." "I have no idea how I managed to keep my hands to myself." Then, unable to stop himself, he kissed her rosy cheek again, softly. "Cat got your tongue?" A slow, teasing smile. "Girlfriend?" Jenny blinked, suddenly shy, still completely affected by the kiss. She looked down at their intertwined hands, took a deep breath, then quietly said, "I'll be your publicist." Sean blinked, then laughed, loudly. People at nearby tables glanced over, curious. "That's all you're going to say?" He laughed again. Nothing about our first kiss. Nothing about the fact we are officially dating now. He kissed her cheek again. He could not stop touching her. I can't get enough of you, he admitted softly. Tell me I'm not alone in this. You're very quiet. Jenny cleared her throat, still gathering herself. You're not alone. I wanted the kiss too. Her cheeks darkened. I was getting frustrated. His brows lifted immediately. Frustrated? She nodded. I couldn't understand why you were taking so long. Pleasure flashed openly across his face. You could have started it. He smiled slowly. Or asked. I would have happily obliged. I didn't want to rush you, he said then. Unable to help himself, he kissed her again, softly. Let's eat. His voice lowered dangerously. Before I carry you straight to my house. Jenny blushed so hard, her cheeks practically lived pink around him now. Thank you for agreeing to be my publicist, he said genuinely. We work well together. After the interview, I got home and reporters were already waiting outside. He sighed dramatically. I had to dodge them to get here. Then he turned serious. How do you feel about public attention? Because he clearly had thought this through. I have absolutely no intention of hiding our relationship. His thumb brushed her hand again. I intend to spend an insane amount of time with you. Everywhere. Jenny's heart skipped. The paparazzi probably won't leave us alone. But I promise, I'll keep you far away from scandal. Jenny smiled softly. I'm not worried. She shrugged lightly. You don't exactly have scandals attached to your name. Outside of terrifying people through your books. Sean laughed, then leaned closer again. Can we eat? His voice lowered. So I can take you home. And properly begin discovering everything about you. The way he looked at her, it felt dangerous. Like he could happily stare at her forever. Like he wanted to memorize her. He leaned in again, completely shameless now, claiming her lips once more. And Jenny could already feel anticipation blooming wildly in her chest. She knew this was only the beginning. The rest, well, the rest, as they say, was history. Please like, subscribe, and share. Watch out for more episodes on Somehow They Met.